We're here with Associate Head Coach Coach Pennington. Can you tell us a little bit about the
so what it is, it's all the top actually participants from the USA. It's a little bit different from the national meet. It's a little bit harder to get into NCAA nationals because you have a lot of international, people competing in college in the U.S. So it kind of gives you an opportunity to just compete against the U.S. best. So overall it's a pretty stacked meet. Not as stacked as last year, being there was Worlds last year, but still a very competitive meet with a lot of professionals and a lot of people who are competing post-collegiate. So very high quality meet that'll be held in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's very high standards to get in. So for our 3 individuals that's actually qualified to get into this meet is a pretty big accomplishment amongst themselves to actually be able to even be here and be able to compete at a meet at such a high standard.
And can you speak a little bit about what the requirements to get in are?
Yeah, so on the women's side, I think DeShaylin got accepted to run the 60 and the 300, but we've actually scratched her from the 60. She's convinced that I was trying to make her run in the 60 just to prove she's not a short sprinter, but she actually qualified for both, which is a big accomplishment, being that she's more of a long sprinter, so that was huge. However, I think her 54.20 that she ran, somewhere around there, it was actually good enough to get her in. I think 54.4 was actually the qualifying mark. So overall, she's going to be running the 300 instead of a 400, which I think is going to be to her advantage because she's a 2.4 girl. So it's right in between, and she has some strength and has some speed to go along with it. So I think it's going to be very beneficial for her. I think that's the race that I wish we had in college, because I think that's one of her strong points. For Amir, it was, I think, 21.20, and he's ran 21.0, so he's pretty easy that he qualified. He's returning to the USAs because he competed last year at USAs, where he actually made it to the semifinal round in the 60. And he's another guy who actually was could have run in the 60 and the 300 here, but we've chosen just to focus on the 300 meters. And I think that this is a race that he's been wanting to do now for some time in college. He's never gotten to run a 300 meter, and I think that's his strong point also. So I think that's why we're just going to focus on that. He's going to have some pretty good guys in his heat. I mean, he has one of the better guys in the country that's still, I think, in high school that's actually going to be competing. So, and he has another guy who actually just turned pro. So there'll be some that was actually 4th or 5th at the Olympic trials last year. So there'll be some competition for these guys that'll prepare them to when we get to the national championships, and stuff like that. If they've never seen this competition before, so it won't put as much stress and pressure on some of these guys, being that they'll have this meet prior to them actually competing at the regional or national championships and even conference championships. And Michael Larkins, this is it's a big thing for him, but again, he's an All-American. It's not like he hasn't seen the top caliber competition, but he didn't have the ideal conference meet that we were expecting. So I think this is actually going to help him shake back and get some confidence going into his outdoor season, which is primarily his season anyway. He's never been much of an indoor guy, but he has improved a whole lot. So I think this will be big for him. Another stacked field of 60-meter guys, from the best guys in our country that's going to be competing there. So it'll be huge for Michael Larkins, DeShaylin Jones, and Amir James to actually just get a chance to compete against this type of caliber athletes.
What are some goals that y'all have for just going into the meet? It's, as you said, stacked field. So what are your kind of expectations?
Most importantly, I just want these guys to go out there and have fun. So that's the biggest thing. With Micah, I would just say get through day 1 and let's try to advance to day 2. That'd be a huge goal for us, not chase the time. With DeShaylin and Amir, we've kind of thrown some numbers out there. I'd like for DeShaylin just to be able to run 38 seconds. I'm sure she'd be pretty pleased with that. And Amir, we're gonna gun for 33, but 34 is something I know he can do, but we'll gun for 33. But either way, I just want him to go out and have some fun and be able to compete at this level, and I think that's the most important.
You've talked about each athlete a little bit. Can you reflect back on their indoor season and how this kind of helped them either prepare for outdoor or how they're going to compete coming up this weekend?
It'll be big. We have McNeese the very following weekend, so we may hold back on that meet with these 3 just to kind of give them some time to rest and recover. They may do a single event or so at McNeese. But overall, I think their conference championships is huge. DeShaylin, she's did what I've known she could do over the last few years. She's finally, stepped up and did it. Not that she hasn't, did it in the past, but she actually had a huge workload this weekend, and she she really, you know, performed under the pressure that she was given, and it was never any back down or anything. So that was a big meet for her. Amir, same thing, broke the conference record in the 200. I think he was a guy that's kind of battled some injuries, so he's actually, you know, performed pretty well. And Micah, you know, not where he wanted to be, but way better than where we were last year at this time. So that's huge for a guy that was All-American last year, and him to be improved this much compared to where he was last year. So that's great.
And how do you think having the Northwestern State team, the name out there, help for recruiting coming up with this?
Huge,
US,
huge. You know, I've already spoken to a few recruits, and anytime you mention USA Championships to some of these kids, it's always a wow factor. You know, they get to watch this. You get to tune in live and watch this on NBC. You know, so when you're able to watch a school competing at the national championships against grown-ups that you actually idol. You know, some of these professional athletes these kids idolize, and now they're actually competing against them. So for some of these recruits to see us on national television and being able to compete against all these professional athletes, I think it's a definitely huge upside for us in recruiting, and I think it gives us an edge.
Okay. And shifting gears a little bit, Deshaun Gordon's not competing this weekend, but she was named the Southern Conference Newcomer of the Year. What is that?
That's huge.
Say about her?
That is huge. You know, she's a girl who we barely missed out on nationals. Again, it's extremely hard for you to get to NCAA national championships. I think if we had just had that competition, would have given her a little bit more fire with some higher level competition, that'd be no doubt in my mind she'd be a top 5 competitor at the national championships. Outdoor is a different story. We get regional, so we get to go head up with some of these schools, and no doubt in my mind she'll be ready. You know, she did some big things, and she's improving every day. You know, so she's going to run some fast times. I guess it was new to me that she was the Newcomer of the Year, which it's not surprising. You know, she's earned it and she's deserved it. So she's going to be good. She would decide that she wanted to run for the U.S. instead of Jamaica, but that's her citizenship that she's went with, and she's did a great job representing her country. She would have easily qualified for our national championships also. So I'm proud of Deshaun, and she did some big things so far.
Thank you very much, Coach.
All right, thank you.